If I said to you that you can go through an entire NFL game with a quarterback and not have him throw one ball between the numbers, what would you say?
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It never is, but especially not on a Teaching Tutorial Thursday. Class is in session with the man, the myth, the legend, Greg Cosell from NFL Films University. We are, of course, presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Greg's segment is always presented by Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. Please drink responsibly. Gonna dive into the AFC, NFC championship games with Greg. I got questions about Kellen Moore, since it looks like he's gonna be the next Saints head coach. We'll get to Greg momentarily. Hopefully I'll remember to have winners that spread the word via social media at Ross Tucker NFL, at Ross Tucker Pod. Take advantage of any of our sponsors, rate and review the show, or give us a shout out on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. I love it. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
You know him, you love him. He joins us every week here on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Programming note, Greg will join us early for his Super Bowl preview next week because we're going to be down at the Super Bowl, all kinds of stuff. I think we'll probably have Greg's Super Bowl preview on Monday to set the table for the whole week, get you guys ready for Super Bowl 59. But we got next week to do that, Greg. For today, I wanted to ask you about some of the comings and goings in the NFL, as well as the conference championship games. I guess before we get to the conference championship games, first question, it looks like as of this morning, Thursday morning, January 30th, it looks like the Saints are going to hire Kellen Moore as their head coach. You've been watching offenses that he's designed, he's coordinated for a while now. Curious to get your thoughts, Greg, on, for Saints fans in particular, on what they're getting from a play caller, what they're getting as far as you've seen schematically.
Yeah, I mean, I would say from coaches I've talked to through the years, Ross, because I'm not going to pretend that I can go out and call plays. I mean, that would be ridiculous, or put together a game plan. Obviously, that's not what I do. But I think that when you're a play caller, an offensive coach, designing game plans, calling plays, you think in terms of a number of things. You think, what are the strengths and limitations of my people? How to best utilize that so that you are playing to those strengths and minimizing limitations. And then when you get to specific games, you're dealing with the probability and tendencies of the defense that you're playing against. Now, it all starts with particular philosophies and staples that you believe as an offensive coach. Since we're speaking about Kellen Moore, obviously it's offense. So you have a certain worldview of what you want your offense to look like, and you coach it that way with an understanding of, hey, maybe I can do this, but I really can't use this part of my playbook as much as I may want because I don't have the players who can do that part of it. But you definitely have a worldview and a belief in how you want your offense to look. And then when you get to the actual games, you are working against a defense, and much of what you call is a function of what that defense is showing you in given situations, because every coach has tendencies and probabilities, and coaches tend to coach against coaches more than they do against players, unless there's a truly dominant player that you have to change up your approach for. So that's the way I think that coaches think, and I think Kellen Moore this year with the Eagles did an outstanding job of understanding the strengths of his players on offense and the limitations of his players on offense.
So many good things there. I mean, so many good things. I guess one question would be, when you have watched him in Dallas, last year with the Chargers,
Yep.
this year with the Eagles, is there a big difference from year to year based on his personnel and what he thinks he has, or are there a lot of very similar concepts?
Well, the concepts are similar because you're not doing things that you're not comfortable with, but it's the things that you focus on. Like, I'll give you an example. If I said to you that you can go through an entire NFL game with a quarterback and not have him throw one ball between the numbers, what would you say?
That sounds almost impossible.
That's what happened this past week in the NFC Championship game with the Eagles. Jalen Hurts did not throw one ball in the entire game between the numbers, and yet he had a totally efficient game within the context of an entire Eagles offense. So my point being is this, is that when he was with Dallas and the Chargers, he had Prescott and he had Herbert, certain kinds of quarterbacks. Now with the Eagles, he has Jalen Hurts, who has different strengths and clear limitations. So what you do is you play to those strengths and you try to minimize the limitations. So you go through an entire championship game in which your quarterback does not throw one ball between the numbers, and yet your offense is highly, highly efficient. And actually, Hurts played extremely well within the context of that offense, as you probably know, you saw the game. But that's a great example, in my view, of understanding the strengths and limitations of your quarterback, because that's where it starts. Your offense starts, for the most part, with what your quarterback can do and can't do. If you happen to have a truly special player in Saquon Barkley, obviously you're working through that. But for the most part, you're working through what the strengths and limitations of your quarterback are in how you put together what your offense will look like, and certainly what it will look like in the games against specific opponents.
Okay, so now I'm fascinated by this because I thought quarterbacks always said the throws in the middle of the field are easier throws because they're shorter throws. So talk to me as to why they would avoid the middle of the field.
And I'm not, by the way, just so you know, I'm not talking about a quick check down for, 4 yards. I'm talking about a structured design throw, like a dig ball, something along those lines.
Right, I
Right.
understand. But I guess I'm still wondering if quarterbacks tell me all the time that the throws in the middle of the field are easier because they're shorter. I guess I'm curious as to, maybe you know the answer, or maybe it's just an opinion as to why Hurts doesn't throw to the middle of the field, or they don't work the middle of the field. What could be some of the reasoning behind that?
Intermediate throws in the middle of the field, Ross, versus zone coverage are window throws that require really precise timing and anticipation. That's not Hurts's game. That's not the strength of his game. And again, I'm sure people listening are going to say, oh, you're knocking Jalen Hurts. What I'm saying, everybody knows, by the way, this is not a bold, controversial statement or news. Everybody knows this. Hurts has particular strengths and certain limitations. And Kellen Moore had to work through all that, and I'm sure he did through OTAs, minicamp, training camp, and came to understand, hey, this is what my offense is with my players. When you talk about Jalen Hurts, for instance, and this cannot be overstated at all, by the way, he does not turn the ball over. You cannot overstate that. That is so, so critical, particularly in the context of this team. Don't forget, you're talking about 2024. We're not talking about 2 years ago. We're not talking about next year. We're talking about 2024. So in the context of 2024, the Eagles have a big-time defense, the most dominant running back in the league, in my view, the best run-blocking O-line in the league, a clearly dominant group. So now you're playing to what that group is. This is what you're playing with. So you're going to have your quarterback, when you understand what he is and what he isn't, play within that context. And Hurts has played, for the most part, really, really well within that context. They're anathema to the way most people think about the NFL these days, Ross. Most people think that big plays must come out of the passing game, and percentage-wise they do. But the Eagles, they get the big explosive plays out of the running game. That doesn't happen very often in the NFL. So when people look at Jalen Hurts and see in a given game, not this past week, but in given games this year, well, he's 13 for 22 for 130 yards, and the response is, well, you can't win that way. You can't win that way. Well, if you're getting 3 or 4 big explosive plays in your run game, you can win that way.
So interesting. Really, really fascinating. And I think that bodes well for Saints fans if Kellen Moore ends up being the head coach down there. Although, as you and I have talked about, Greg, a million times, how good of a play caller you are or play designer is a small part of being a head coach if you're
Yes.
the offensive play caller as the head coach. You know, I've been kind of defending Brian Schottenheimer by saying head coach and coordinator are two different jobs.
Yeah.
We see so many examples, Greg, of guys that are great coordinators that aren't very good head coaches. What if, like Brian Schottenheimer, what if his skill set's the opposite? What if he's a better head coach and CEO and leader of a team and game manager and culture setter than he ever was as a play designer, a play caller?
And that's what you and I don't know. I mean, you get to do games, so you get to talk to coaches. You know, I've talked to many coaches through the years, but I'm not talking to them through the season. I think a lot of people would argue, you know, again, this is not my area of expertise by any means, but I think a lot of people would argue that it's two totally different skill sets. I mean, you look at Liam Cohen, I think everybody would agree that he's a really good designer of offense and play caller. I think the same people would say that probably has no bearing on whether he could be a good head coach. You know, maybe he'll be a great head coach. We don't know this, but they're two different skill sets.
No question. I want to stick with the NFC Championship game, Greg, because it's the last time we'll talk about the Commanders for a while. Obviously, early next week, we'll do the Super Bowl preview and talk more about the Eagles. But just kind of what else jumped out to you about this game? I was floored with the first drive by the Commanders. 2 third and longs, 2 fourth downs, 18 plays. And I think they didn't even get to the 25-yard line. And they kicked like a long 40-something field goal. They really had to go the long way. I mean, they really did.
That's the way Vic Fangio plays, is that they play a lot of too high structure with their safeties to start. They'll do multiple things off that. In this particular game, they played a good mix of single high, predominantly cover 1, some cover 3, some 1 robber, and they played a lot of too high concepts, and there's multiple too high safety concepts. You know, just think of it this way. It plays off what we were just speaking about. They go 18 plays, Ross. They eat up more than 7 minutes of clock. Now, no question, they want a touchdown. No question. That's not a profound statement. But they probably still felt pretty good, you know, that, hey, we just won 18 plays. We ate up 7+ minutes. We're kind of controlling the game. We're feeling good. As you said, 3rd down conversions, 4th down conversions, and then bam, 65-yard Barkley touchdown run. And yeah, there's still a boatload of time left, but the game just felt different after that play. It just felt like a different game. Did it not? I mean, watching it live, I just felt like it was a different game. You know,
it had to be, no matter whether it was conscious or subconscious, it had to be disheartening.
Yeah.
It has to be disheartening.
Yeah. So you know, and by the way, this also plays into the fact that Hurts and the Eagles never turn the ball over because they make the other team have to do that, have to go long drives time after time after time. And yes, that Commanders opening drive, maybe Eagles fans were getting worried, you know, oh my God. But you know what? That's hard to do 5-6 times in a game. You know that. You played. That's really hard to do. And it's certainly hard against a Vic Fangio defense. So, you know, and again, you can't predict or count on turnovers. Obviously, the Eagles got them in that game, and maybe it would have been different, maybe not. No one can answer that. But that's the way Vic Fangio plays, and he wants the opponent, doesn't want them, but I mean, the opponent's going to have long drives against a Vic Fangio defense. They don't blitz very much. I think Daniels had 55 dropbacks in the game. I think the Eagles rushed 5-7 times. They don't blitz a lot. That's not the Fangio style.
You know, a couple of things jump out to me about that, Greg. If you're going to do that, then there's going to be more plays, more chances to have a penalty, more chances to get the ball punched out.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to earn any type of touchdown, which is kind of their philosophy. That leads me to another question about this game. Then I want to get to the AFC Championship game. Zach Ertz had a huge day, Greg.
Yeah.
Huge day. there's been some back and forth in Philly media because I went on WIP in Philadelphia yesterday. I said, yeah, I mean, I'd be concerned about Travis Kelce because Zach Ertz, I thought, ate up the Eagles, whether it was zone coverage against the linebackers, whether it was man coverage, Blankenship or Gardner Johnson. Zach Ertz had a big day, and I would think that Andy Reid would think that Kelce could have a big day. People are saying to me, that's what Fangio was giving him. Fangio was giving him Zach Ertz. They didn't care about Ertz. And I guess on some level, I understand you're not going to get explosive plays from Ertz, but you also can't let Travis Kelce, Greg, have 15 catches for 150 yards and convert every third down either. I mean, so I'm curious what you saw about how the Eagles defended the tight end position, Zach Ertz in particular.
That this way. I know because I've been asked that already and multiple times this week, as you can imagine. And I don't think it's apples to apples at all. And again, we know Travis Kelce's phenomenal. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's got all the records in the postseason, and he certainly could have 9 catches for 130 yards no matter what you do. We know that. So I don't want to sit here and say that the Eagles are going to shut him down. But in terms of how they play and how they will deal with him from a coverage standpoint, it's not going to be the same. It's not apples to apples. You know that. You played. I mean, they're not going to do the same thing. The Eagles played cover one a good amount in this game, and they had Blankenship on Ertz, okay? Now, Blankenship is normally not the tight end matchup on tight ends. He's not the man-to-man matchup on tight ends when the Eagles play cover one, but they did that in this game. I think you and I would be very surprised if Blankenship was the matchup on Kelce when they play cover one, because that's not Blankenship's strength at all. But they did that in this game, and like you said, no coach goes into a game and what just popped into my head was, and a lot of fans might not even remember this, younger fans, is when Bill Belichick as the Giants D coordinator, when they beat the Bills, and they pretty much decided that if you want to hand the ball to Thurman Thomas, feel free. We're going to take away your big play in the pass game. And Thomas ended up with like 15 for 135, and I think that was the Norwood game, if memory serves me correctly. But, my sense was that they knew Ertz wasn't going to get big plays, okay? He's not Kelce. He's not a run-after-catch guy. He's not going to do that. So, again, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, they didn't mind that he caught a lot of balls, but they knew that that was not going to provide big plays for the Commanders' offense.
Okay, let's get to the AFC Championship game. Blank slate, Greg. You can take it wherever you want. It was a fantastic game. What kind of jumped out to you first?
Whew, that game had so much. I think as a sort of macro point of view, the Chiefs' offense to me has been a fascinating study this year because, and again, who knows what happens in the Super Bowl? We'll talk about that, next week. But I think what they've really evolved into over this season, as I said, up to this moment in time, is they are a third down offense and a red zone offense. They are not a big play offense. They don't get very many big plays in the pass game. I was blown away by a stat that I saw. It blew me away. During the regular season, Xavier Worthy had only 4 receptions of 20-plus yards. This is not a big play offense. They're a third down conversion offense that they do really well schematically and with Mahomes' legs. And in the red zone, they do some really cool things. Like, I'll give you an example. The first Kareem Hunt touchdown, maybe in his only one, but it ended the first possession. That touchdown and the Mahomes rushing touchdown in the fourth quarter that put them ahead 29-22 were the exact same play in every way, except with Hunt, Mahomes handed the ball to Hunt. The second one, he kept it, but it was the exact same play. So that to me is fascinating about the Chiefs' offense because they're not really a big play explosive offense, and they haven't been all season.
Well, and I wouldn't think they would be against the Eagles with everything you just said
I
about
agree.
Fangio, but we'll get to that more next week. What about, Greg, on the other side, the Buffalo Bills? I was disappointed in some of the things they did. Didn't seem like they had an answer for Spags on the last play. Didn't seem like they had a great solution for the quarterback sneak. That's the most points the Chiefs scored all year.
Yeah, well, I would answer that this way, and I've given this a lot of thought, and I felt this for a number of years, quite frankly. So, and people may disagree with me. You've done Bills games, you cover the league. I don't think the Bills, and like I said, maybe to some people this comes across as bold and controversial. I don't think it is at all if you study tape. I don't think the Bills are an overly talented team, Ross. I don't believe they have a true impact player on their defense. They've got some nice players, some good players. Milano's a good player. Bernard's a good player. I don't think their back end is very good at all relative to what you expect, when teams get to a championship game. And on offense, they really don't have very much at the skill positions. I think that Shakir is a really nice number 3. I think he's really good, but they don't have what you'd call a 1 or a 2. Their O-line is very good, and they've got a good run game. Not an unbelievable run game, a good run game. So I don't view this team, and I felt this way for a number of years about the Bills. I don't think they're overly talented. So to have achieved what they've achieved, with Josh Allen, and I think his record is one-loss record, and again, then people make it about Josh Allen, is really good, but I don't think this is one of the most talented teams in the league by any stretch of the imagination.
Even when they had Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis
Well, Stephon Diggs is a good player. I thought that Gabe Davis was an average wide receiver at best, but that's, again, that's based on film study. That's not, to me, that's not an interpretation. That's based on film. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they've for the most part been a super talented team. They've changed their approach a bit this year and incorporated the run game far more. It's clear that Josh Allen has, this year, whether it was through coaching or just his personal growth and development, was a less risky player. But I don't know. You tell me. I don't think their defense has really dominant players. I think it's a schemed defense that has to do all the little things well, and McDermott's a really good defensive coach, and they do that for the most part, but I don't think there is a truly impact player on that defense.
Guess what, Greg? I think they had one guy that made first team or second team All-Pro, and it was Josh Allen.
Yeah.
On the entire team.
Yeah.
On the entire team.
Yeah.
Because the Ravens had 6, and I don't know how many of them made the Pro Bowl, but the Ravens had like 9 Pro Bowlers. Maybe that was the stat, that the Bills don't even have another Pro Bowler.
Look, you and I both know.
What you're saying is not controversial. If you don't have anybody else that makes All-Pro or Pro Bowl, the people that vote on that are telling you they don't have any other great players.
And I don't want to get into this conversation because it's pointless. But, I mean, everybody made this game, Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. Oh, Josh Allen's this, Josh Allen's that. We know Patrick Mahomes is great, and we know that he's, maybe on his way to being the best to ever play the game. I don't think we need to keep saying that every time we talk about Patrick Mahomes. That's a given, So, the fact to me that the Bills have been able to accomplish what they've accomplished over these last number of years, whoever you want to attribute that to, I think is pretty remarkable, given that they've not been one of the, they're nowhere near the top of the NFL in terms of overall roster.
Well said, Greg. Love it. Can't wait for the Super Bowl preview. Going to be awesome. Check him out on social media at Greg Cosell. I think, Jack, this is the last time I can tell everybody about the 3 for free sales event through February 2nd from my friends over at westshorehome.com/Ross. As a reminder, at a minimum, just go to westshorehome.com/Ross to see what my house looks like, to see what the 4 beautiful brand new doors look like. If you just see the before and after, you'll be like, damn, you know what? That does look good. I should get a new door. Or I haven't done the windows yet. I'm going to do the windows, but we have done the 2 showers, which are beautiful. It really, it's well worth the money, especially since they can do the shower in one day, which is crazy. Free install, free upgrade, 0% free interest. Plus, if you do it from westshorehome.com/Ross, you get an extra $500 off. So you're stacking 4 deals on top of each other at westshorehome.com/Ross. All right, the Super Bowl is set. It is the Eagles and the Chiefs. I've been telling you guys about Smirnoff being an official sponsor of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast all year. So you already know that they're also an official vodka partner of the NFL and Super Bowl 59. What I love about Smirnoff is that you can get the world's #1 vodka without breaking the bank. Very important. This feeling is what the good folks over at Smirnoff call Smirnoff Extraordinary. And yes, I can say that way better than the guys in the TV commercial. They've got some awesome items right now dropping, including from Vernon Davis. You got to check it out. Head on over to SmirnoffDrops.com to check out upcoming drops and check out these Smirnoff Extraordinary items. Go quick. They won't last long. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Pricing at sole discretion of the retailer. May vary by state. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age. The only thing better than game day predictions are the foods that come with them. Introducing Tums Fantasy Foodball Pool. Brought to you by Tums, America's #1 antacid brand, and DraftKings. Turn football into foodball by building your best game day plate for a shot at winning a share of $40,000 in cash prizes. Join the Tums foodball action during this playoff season's most heartburn-inducing time. Visit DraftKings.com/Tums foodball now through February 9th to enter for free and select your game day plate before the start of each playoff round. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at DraftKings.com/Tums foodball. Don't let heartburn keep you on the sidelines. Try Tums Chewy Bites with a tasty outer shell and soft center for fast relief of heartburn, acid indigestion, and upset stomach. Check out Tums Gummy Bites, featuring a soft and easy-to-chew format for fast relief of occasional heartburn, acid indigestion, sour stomach, and upset stomach. Both available at Amazon, Target, and other major retailers nationwide. Be sure to follow Tums at Tums Official on Instagram and TikTok.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, some more coaching news around the league. The Ravens, they're hiring Chuck Pagano to be a senior coach in the secondary. The Jets officially hired Steve Wilks as their defensive coordinator. And the Raiders, they're bringing back Patrick Graham to coordinate their defense.
So the Patrick Graham thing's interesting. That's rare because his contract expired, and then he's going back to the place where the head coach was fired. I like saying it like that. I'm like rhyming. That doesn't happen very often. I can't think of many times where head coach fired, coordinator contract expires, they bring him back. Steve Wilks, I like that pairing with Aaron Glenn. He's only a head coach for 1 year, but he can help Glenn avoid some of the pitfalls. And I love people that love football. Chuck Pagano's made plenty of money. Chuck Pagano's got a nice gig with McAfee. This dude loves ball, and I love people that love ball.
Lions, they've found replacements for Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. They're promoting linebacker coach Kelvin Shepard to be their defensive coordinator and hiring John Morton from the Denver Broncos as their OC.
That's interesting to me because they've got guys like Brunell, and they had Antoine Randall and Hank Fraley, but Dan Campbell did not decide to bring any of those guys in to be the play caller. I think he might have overlapped with Morton with the Saints a little bit, which might be one of the reasons why he did that. Also, speaking of calling plays, Kevin Stefanski is going to be calling plays in Cleveland. I think we forgot that, Jack, or I didn't mention that. I might actually see Kevin tonight. I'm doing a Ivy League Football Association dinner in Manhattan, and he's one of the people being honored. So I would think he would be there. Maybe I'll ask him about calling the plays tonight, say hi to him, and maybe I can talk about it on tomorrow's show, which should be great. One more thing I wanted to mention. You guys know the last couple of weeks I've been giving shout-outs to my guys Jason and Travis Kelce. If you haven't checked out New Heights yet, you should. It's hilarious. I was about to say it's hilarious. It's funny. That would be redundant. They would actually make fun of me for doing that. Listen and watch New Heights wherever you get your podcasts. Here's what's cool. If you want to skip the ads, catch new episodes, and unlock access to exclusive episodes of the show, join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Those guys love beer, and I've seen Jason in Buffalo multiple times crushing some Labatt Blue Lights, either in the Taylor Swift suite with his shirt off or out with tailgaters. Be like Jason Kelce. Drink some Labatt Blue Lights with your friends or just random strangers and live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. All the other shows are up. Check them out. Even Money, Fantasy Feast, College Draft. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com, by far the best Valentine's Day gift I've ever seen. And how about getting an automatic signed press pass or picture card, whatever you want, myfrontpagestory.com. Just forward me the email, ross@rosstucker.com. Backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.